us about meditation.
On করা আছে, on করা আছে। চম্পকবাবু on করা আছে।
It's okay.
सर्वधर्मस्थापकस्त्वं सर्वधर्मस्वरूपकः आचार्याणां महाचार्यो रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। यथाग्निर्दाहिका शक्ति रामकृष्णे स्थिता हिया सर्वविद्या स्वरूपां तां शारदां प्रणमाम्यहं। परतत्त्वे सदा लीनो रामकृष्ण समाज्ञया यो धर्म स्थापनरतो वीरेशं तं नमाम्यहं। वीरेशं तं नमाम्यहं। A Shubho Navabarsha to all of you. It is a pleasure to be assembled here on this auspicious day. I had an inkling of Houston devotees yesterday when I gathered at the Durga Badi. Of course, it combined Annapurna Puja, and at the end of it there was lavish prasad as well. So you can actually expect a decent crowd. But of course, a center of the Ramakrishna Math mission that the Vedanta Society of Greater Houston is, that carries a special import for us, that rings a separate bell in our hearts. So here I am, and I would thank the organizers profusely for giving me this opportunity. And I would, among the devotees assembled, I would separately thank Mr. Chompok Shadu, who had been very instrumental in bringing me along, financing the trip, as well as planning out the different centers that I could be going during my first visit to the United States. So on this Poila Boishak Day, our topic has been an ambitious one, meditation. And people could have a wink in the eye and think that it was quite a dry one, to put it succinctly. But this is what we would try. We would take a few verses from the Bhagavad Gita to elucidate why meditation is necessary. In fact, all of you know about the storyline of Bhagavad Gita. Meditation just isn't confined to the temples, the places of worship alone. It is something that equips the mind and helps you in performing all works that you undertake, all the better. Swami Vivekananda, in his famous book Raja Yoga, deals with this subject at length. So this book in the modern age has given a separate dimension to this topic of meditation. I remember one of the most important researchers on Swami Vivekananda. He was Professor Shankari Prasad Bosu. The special remark that he made was, in today's world, the photograph of Bhagavan Buddha and the photograph of Swami Vivekananda sit side by side to teach us what meditation is, what concentration is. These are, as it were, are the very epitome of what meditation can take one to. When Swamiji dictated the Raja Yoga text, Sarabul was there to take dictation of what was there in his mind. So sometimes he would meditate for long hours, and Miss Bull had to stay put during the entire time, waiting for Swamiji to start his dictation. So such was the depth of his mind that these sutras of Patanjali, that is there in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, Swamiji has taken all pains to translate these sutras at the very end. So to tell you what meditation is, Swamiji's elucidation of that sutra, which gives a definition, would be important, would be apt. It says, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Here yoga means concentration of the mind. Yuj dhatu means to affix, to fix on. So how do you fix the mind on a particular object? For that, Chitta Vritti. Chitta is the mind. Vritti are the waves. Nirodha means prevention. So the particular object that on which you want to set your mind on, there would always be other aberrations, other vikshepa as they are called, so that they would ever try to pull you away from your goal, your object of attention. So the work of meditation or yoga here is to cut off the mind from these aberrations, from these vrittis. Swamiji in this book discusses all the details. He says, you see, in the mind, at every point of time, you have a wave, chitta vritti. These various vrittis, when they are all concentrated on a single subject, then you have a dhyana. So these are the various steps, one by one. Dhyana, samadhi, at the highest is nirvikalpa samadhi. This Ashtanga Yoga means 8 steps. The first steps are mainly physical ones. When you sit erect, the spine, the head and the griva, the neck must be in the same line, Bhagavad Gita says. So Bhagavad Gita, interestingly, we start out with that book. It is set out in a battlefield. As you all know, the storyline, Arjuna, a reluctant warrior of the Pandavas, they had taken all the measures to have a sandhi, so that they can have friendship with the Kauravas once again. But it didn't work out. And finally, at the end of 13 years, when they return from the Ajnatavasa and Vanavasa, and when they go up to Duryodhana, and he says, the famous couplet by Rabindranath, it says, Bina juddhe nahi dibo shuchagro medini. Translated in English, it would be that even the amount of earth that sticks at the end of a needle, such a small amount, I wouldn't dispense with that without a war. Thus Duryodhana goes back on his words, on his promise. Because he had won a Dyuta Krida, a game of dice. And there the conditions were that they would remain for 12 years in Vanavasa and 1 year of Ajnatavasa. So they had completed that chain, the Pandavas. They returned, they asked back their legitimate kingdom. but the Kauravas, puffed up with pride and the military valor that they are endowed with now, would partake with the legitimate right of the Pandavas. So when all demonstrations failed, Krishna himself had gone as a Duta, as a messenger. But even he was turned away. When all such efforts had failed, then the Pandavas decided to go for a war. Both the Pandavas and the Kauravas, interestingly, had sent their messengers all across India, so that the Kshatriyas, the warrior clan, members of the warrior clan rather, they would join either the Pandavas or the Kauravas. So the stage was set. On the field of Kurukshetra is now in the state of Haryana. There the Pandavas and the Kauravas are assembled, and before the battle was about to start, a battle cry is sounded. The conch shells are blown. On both the Pakshas, Pandavas and the Kauravas, they sound the conch shells. The conch shells, in fact, they symbolize the start of the battle. But suddenly, Arjuna, at this moment of important moment that is due to come in his life, a cliffhanger that is due to come, he asked his charioteer, Arjuna asked his charioteer Krishna, because Krishna has taken a vow that he won't fight himself. He would only be a charioteer. But in fact, he turned out to be the most important non-playing captain, as it is known in the Davis Cup matches. Non-playing captain. This was what Krishna became. So Arjuna in desperation turned up to him and said, "You see, my head is reeling. I do not know what ought to be done." In fact, he starts rebuking Krishna even. He says that, "You see, it would have been better to live on bhiksham instead of indulging in the killing of our own relatives." So Krishna allows Arjuna to go on speaking, because Arjuna is in a fix, he's puzzled. When he understands the import of this great war, the entire Kuru clan in the land of India, Bharatvarsha, would be wiped out. This is the implication. So Arjuna was taken aback. He starts ruminating. Is it proper to kill our own relatives to get back our kingdom? He tells Krishna, "You see, later generations would go on blaming us, that for the sake of this kingdom, mere kingdom, we could kill our relatives." So these were all the complexities of Arjuna's mind that he was speaking out actually. In fact, Arjuna symbolized all of us in a desperation. After taking a step in life, we look back and again our legs start tottering. Haven't we taken the wrong step? Are we on the right track? So it is at that point that Arjuna looked for a guide. And this is where Krishna came up. He was no longer a charioteer. He was no longer a friend even. He was now a teacher. He scolded Arjuna severely at that point of time. He said, "It doesn't befit you, Arjuna. Klaipyam masma gamah partha naitat tvai upapadyate. Shudram hridaya daurbalyam tyaktva uttishta parantapa." Parantapa is scorcher of foes. You see, Arjuna, it doesn't befit you to remain like an imbecile person. Klaipyam masma gama. It doesn't befit you. Na eta tvai upapadyate. In you, this isn't proper. Shudram hridaya daurbalyam. In moments of crisis, all of us face this hridaya durbalata, daurbalya. So Krishna tells him, Shudram hridaya daurbalyam, tyaktva, give it up. Uttishta, rise up. He Parantapa, O scorcher of foes. So Bhagavad Gita is interesting, important, appealing, because this is practical. This doesn't tell you about meditation in the temple alone. It's not an armchair philosophical book. It's a book which can be applied in your day-to-day life. And interestingly, this is the book which tells you in details about meditation. So I would take the liberty of taking up a few verses from this. So how can you fix the mind? The mind is like a monkey, Swamiji says. He says, imagine a monkey which has been fed wine, which has drunk wine, and then a scorpion stings the monkey. See this allegory, okay? This is a monkey which is restless by its own nature, and then it drinks wine. When a scorpion stings the monkey again, then you can't control the monkey at all. He says similar is the condition of the mind. When we are in a fix, unable to decide, we try to look at measures, how to control the mind. So let's look at the Bhagavad Gita, okay? Athachittam samadhatum na shaknoshi mai sthiram abhyasa yogena tato mamichhaptum dhananjaya. So he does the easiest one first. He says, you see, you are not able to control the mind, fine. Okay, try again and again. Don't give up. You could say, well, all of us, we apply this method. We try again and again. So before an important examination, when the mind is restless, eager to look at the TV, you again and again bring it back onto the books. Abhyasa, repeated practice. Then the mind in desperation cuts itself off from the other objects and puts it on the object that is imminent, that is necessary. Well, sometimes this doesn't do. You require an alternative plan. When you are cutting off the mind, this actually is a negative step. Anvaya and Vyatireka. These are the words logic. Anvaya is positive, Vyatireka is negative. You tell the mind, do not loiter around. So that's a negative disciplining of the mind. Instead, you tell the mind, I will concentrate on this book, on this object in hand. So the first step is you cut it off from the outside world. And the second step is you force the mind or bring the mind around to concentrate on the object in hand. It could be the book. It could be on the deity. Bhagavan is intelligent enough to understand our predicament. He says, Arjuna, probably he puts the question on behalf of all of us. He says, Abhyase api asamartha asi mat karma paramo bhava. He says, well, you see, I can't discipline my mind. Abhyase api asamartha asi. Then what should you do? Mat karma paramo bhava. Instead do works meant for the Lord. Or rather, whatever works you do, you surrender those works to the Lord. Madartham api karmani urvan siddhim avapsyasi. So when you do works for the Lord, theoretically, then you are not bound by those works. I remember when I tried to practice this literally, because interestingly, no one will be able to check whether you are really surrendering your work, isn't it? It's a mental process. Suppose you take your food at the end of this lecture. And then you're about to go and sit in your car. So I remember when we had a brahmacharya at the end of our 5 years, Swami Atmasthanji Maharaj, he was the General Secretary. So we were asked, the brahmacharyas, new brahmacharyas, that well, you can put questions, whatever you think is necessary. So I remember nudging others and going ahead and asking him, Maharaji, well, how can we surrender the fruits of work at every point of time? Suppose I am performing the works of an accountant in our center, in the monastery. So should I stop the work and close my eyes again? Surrender the fruits again? And then start for the next one? In the process, won't my accounts go haywire? Won't it get wrong? So this comes only through abhyasa. It can so happen that at the end of the day you are reminded again, you remind yourself that you haven't performed this process. You haven't surrendered the fruits of work to the Lord. It can so happen. So what ought to be done is, you should look back. Pratyahara, this is one stage that comes in the Ashtanga Yoga. Pratyahara means taking or observing the mind waves. It says, you see, imagine a kite that is being flown. The strings are in your hand. So the person who flies the kite, Guri, what he does is, with the strong wind, he releases more and more strings. And the kite goes on further and farther. But at one point of time, he must take back the thread once again. Okay? In the story, the latai as it's known, right? If he is able to do that, then he's sure that the kite is in his hand. Sometimes he can't. Because probably there's another person flying a kite whose string has inadvertently or consciously cut your strings. So what happens? Then the kite goes on flying beyond a real reach. So pratyahara is the process when you are gradually pulling back the different thoughts of your mind so that you gain control over them. You look back towards your own thoughts and analyze them. A part of the mind, in fact, is looking at the other part and analyzing what thoughts have come to the mind. All of you, I think, have read the Gospel of the Holy Mother, okay? Sisi Mayar Katha. There, a brahmacharya asked her, you see, Mother, when I try to meditate, then the different works that I perform in the monastery, those thoughts come. It happens to every one of us, isn't it? When we want to do japa, interestingly, that is the very time when all our thoughts come rushing in, isn't it? It doesn't come when it ought to do. Sometimes you ought to have thought about the work and then perform them. It doesn't happen accordingly. But when you try to concentrate the mind at one point on, say, the Ishta Devata, then the sundry works that you have performed, they rush in torrents. So Holy Mother tells that brahmacharya, well, it is natural. That will happen. In that process, you will also be able to analyze the works. Bhalo mondo, good and bad. Those will be clearer to you through cogitation, through understanding, through analysis. So one step in controlling the mind is pratyahara, looking back on your thoughts. Why is it difficult? It is difficult because suppose you have a book in hand and you concentrate your mind on the book. Your eyes are on the book, fine? The object is slightly separate from yourself, from your body. So one part of your mind, of the body, the indriya, the eyes, you are trying to fix them on the books. In the Upanishad, there is a wonderful verse, the Katha Upanishad. It says, Bhagavan Vidhata, when he created human beings, like a sculptor, okay, he fixed the eyes, the nostrils, the ears, and told them, you see, look outwards, don't look inwards. The Rishi, the poet, he says, Paran Sikhani Vetrinat Swayambhu Tasmat Parang Pashyati Nantaratman. He says, Paranchi Khani. Khani means the Indriyas. Vetrinat was hit Swayambhu by the Lord. That is why Tasmat Parang Pashyati. They look outward. Pashyati. Na Antaratman. Not inward. But is it so for everyone? There are a few exceptions. The Rishi says, Kaschit Dhira Pratyak Atmanamakshat Avritta Chakshu Amritatvam Ichchan. The Rishi says, but there are exceptions. Kaschit Dhira. There are a few persons who are Dhira, who pose mind. Kaschit Dhira Pratyak Atmanam Aikshat. Pratyak Atman. The self that is within all of us. We worship in the temple, at the symbols, in the images. Okay? But finally, he sits there in our innermost core. That is known as the Pratyak Atma. Pratyak Atmanam Aikshat. Willing to realize that, see that. Avritta Chakshu. Chakshu, eyes. Avritta, closed. Avritta Chakshu. Why does he close the eyes? Amritatvam Ichchan. Because that person, the exceptional one, he wants to look at the nectar, the pot of nectar, of Amrita that is there within. When he says about Amritatvam Ichchan, he's desirous of that. And he doesn't really close the eyes. In Sanskrit, this is known as Upalakshana. By referring to the eyes, all the indriyas are being meant. That is the eyes, the ears, the nostrils, all of them. How do they take us outside? The Upanishad says, you see, every one of the senses, they have their respective objects. The eyes have the sights. The ears have the sounds. The nostrils have the smells. One by one, respectively. So if you are blind in your eyes, if your ears are active, you can't see, isn't it? If your ears are gouged out, eyes are gouged out, ears are working, you won't be able to see anything. So, respectively, for every one of the indriyas, there are the respective objects. Paranchi Khani Vetrinat Swayambhu. The Ishwar, Bhagavan said, the indriyas, look outside. Look at different objects. Don't look inwards. The poet, he is also sadhana. He says, but there are exceptions. You can control your mind. You can look back. You can have a meditation for yourself. But that requires endeavor. That requires an effort on your part. Okay. So Arjuna, after listening to Krishna, because he's in the battlefield, okay, he's unable to control his mind. He in fact had invited the warriors to come and join the Pandavas. And now suddenly he himself is in a fix. Krishna, first of all, tried the usual worldly means. Suppose in your house, a young boy or a young girl wants to skip the examination. The parents would try various means, isn't it? So Krishna also, Arjuna, the warrior, he tries to rouse his valiant self. He says, look Arjuna, if you even desist from the battle, you would set a wrong precedent before the others. Because it was only you who invited them from the battlefield. And now suddenly you are withdrawing. Actually, you are now a coward. You don't have the ability to face reality as it is. So Arjuna, after a strong scolding, he's puzzled. He puts a question. This question, I tell you, comes to all of us. Look at this question. Huh? If someone has the Gita, you can look at this verse. It comes in the 6th Adhyaya, verse 34. Can you chant with me? I'll just repeat, okay? Chanchalam hi mana Krishna. Yes. Chanchalam hi mana Krishna. Pramadhi balavadridham. Pramadhi balavadridham. Tasyaham nigraham manye. Tasyaham nigraham manye. Vayo riva sudushkaram. Vayo riva sudushkaram. Sri Bhagavan Vacha. Sri Bhagavan Vacha. Asamshayam mahabaho. Asamshayam mahabaho. Mano durnigraham chalam. Mano durnigraham chalam. Abhyase natu kaunteya. Abhyase natu kaunteya. Vairagyena cha grihyate. Vairagyena cha grihyate. So let us look at the question and the answer. Okay? Arjuna says, he is almost desperate. He says, Chanchalam hi mana Krishna. Oh Krishna, the mind is very restless. I gave you the simile of the monkey earlier. That was in Swamiji's book. And this comes in the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna puts the question to Krishna. He says, oh Krishna, the mind is very restless. Pramadhi, it is very strong as well. Balavat dridham, sometimes you do not want to engage in a particular thing. But such is the force of mind, such is the power of your mind, that it almost forces you to do that, commit that act. In your inner mind, you would have desisted from that act, but you are almost helpless. The mind is pulling you away in that direction. So he says, Pramati Balavat Dridham. Then Arjuna gives an example. He says, Tasyam nigraham manye. Nigraha, to control that, Vayo iva sudushkaram. Just like controlling the wind, Vayu is dushkara, is difficult. Sukara, what is uneasy? Dushkara is difficult. Vayo iva dushkaram. If someone tells you, go in the lawn and bring a bag of air for me, that would have been difficult, isn't it? Vayo iva dushkaram, sudushkaram. Not only dushkaram. Just look at the word. Sanskrit words have nuances. Dushkara means difficult. Sudushkara means very difficult. Not only difficult, very difficult. So what does Bhagavan say? See, a good teacher, when a student puts a question, the student feels that it's a good question, isn't it? So the teacher doesn't snub him or her. He tells the student, well, it is right what you said, but you can have a solution. Okay. What it does is, it gives confidence to the student. So look at the way that Krishna answers. Asamshayam mahabaho mano durnigraham chalam. Right? Here mahabahu, a person with strong hands, mahabahu. Arjuna is mahabahu. Asamshayam mahabahu. There is no doubt at all. Manah durnigraham chalam. The mind is durnigraha, difficult to control. And chala means chanchala, restless. But there is a way. Abhyasena tu kaunteya. Through repeated practice. Practice. And what else? Vairagyena cha grihyate. You must have both. You must also have vairagya. That is, you must give up unwanted things. You must practice both. First, take up your book. There is examination in front. Day after tomorrow. Take up the book. Positive thing. Negative thing is don't look at the television now. Vairagya. Have vairagya there. You must have both of them simultaneously. Then you can expect to control the mind. See, all of us before the examination, under the pressure of examination or under the pressure of a circumstance, we bring our mind together. We bring our concentration together. And then put all efforts and write for the exams, appear for the exams. At that point of time, we start feeling, aha, is it? We too had such a control over the mind. Okay, henceforth, regularly we'll go on controlling the mind and controlling it regularly. But it doesn't happen. After the examination is over, after a big program is over, then the concerted effort, it dies down. Again another examination comes, then again you're forced into it, as it were. So how can it become a habit? Through repeated practice. So what kind of a practice? It says, look at this verse, and this also comes in the Gita. Arjuna's question. You see, in today's educational parlance, they said that the teaching should have a question and answer method. If you have a monologue, if I go on speaking and you go on listening, after a point you'll start drowsing. This is normal. So teaching should have a question and answer method. Bhagavad Gita has this question and answer method. Look at another question that Arjuna puts. It comes in 3.36. Athakena prayuktoyam papam charati purusha. Can you kindly repeat? Athakena prayuktoyam papam charati purusha anichan apivarshneya balad iva niyojita Sri Bhagavan Vacha Kama esha krodha esha rajo guna samudbhava mahashano mahapapma vidyenam iha vairinam. So look at the meaning, okay? It's so practical, this verse. Arjuna is putting this question. Atha kena prayukta ayam. Goaded by whom? Provoked by whom? Prayukta ayam. Papam charati purusha. The human being, he or she engages in works that he wouldn't prescribe for others. Papam charati purusha. He walks on the path of unwanted things, works. In spite of himself. He wouldn't have liked to do that. Why does he do that? Anichan api varshya. He doesn't want that. Anichan api varshya. Varshya is Vrishni Bangsha. Udbhuta Varshya, Krishna. Balad iva niyojita. As it were, I am being pulled in that direction. I try to resist it, but I don't have the control within to control this attitude, this propensity of mine. Why does it happen? Bhagavan gives the reply. Bhagavan is a teacher here. He says, Kama esha krodha esha. Kama here means desires. Krodha esha. You have a desire. You have a desire to own a wonderful mobile set for yourself. iPhone. Your parents can't afford the money. They tell you, I'll give it to you later. First you pass the examination. You get angry. So kama turns into anger. Kama esha, krodha esha. What is desire is essentially becomes later on krodha. Kama esha, krodha esha. Why does it come? Rajo guna samudbhava. Raja is the propensity to engage in incessant action. Sattva is tranquility. Raja is more and more works, engages even more and more works. This propensity, Rajo Guna Samudbhava. As you engage in more and more works, more and more desires start cropping up, bubbling up in your mind. Mahashana. But this kama is dangerous, he says. These desires, pot full of desires, very, very strong, he says. You see, look at the words. Mahashana. It's a great appetite actually. Ashihatu means to eat. Mahashana. It's a huge belly actually, huge appetite. Mahashana. Mahapapman. And can engage you in great sinful works unless you appease it. Unless it is appeased, it will pull you into wrongdoings. Vidhi enam iha vaidinam. This is really your vaidi, your enemy. See, look at the analysis. We look at our enemies, the external world, isn't it? So it says, no. The external world, these enemies really, they emanate from your inner desires. It is the inner desires that have gradually fashioned the world around. Philosophy says, you are the subject. You in course of time look for the object. Suppose you want to go over to Canada for a long time. This karma, this desire, goes on hitting your mind like a small hammer, day in and day out. You see the photos, you see the videos, you see the cultural complex there, and one day you are almost pushed into it, as it were. Okay? Mahashana, great appetite. Mahapapma, don't have the money. Somehow you quarrel with others, or even steal from others to satisfy that desire. The point is, how do I control this? How do I put a leash on this? Bhagavad Gita so wonderfully even gives a physical prescription for this, not merely theoretical. In fact, our topic was such, not only theoretical discussions, it also tells you about the practical part. So I would just remind you of a verse that comes in the Upanishad. I heard that this was discussed in this center earlier also. It says, Pranavo dhanu sharo yatma brahma talakshama uchyate apramatte navedhavyam sharavat tanmayo bhavet. Put simply, it is this. Pranavo dhanu shara ki atma. So, pranava, omkara, dhanu is the bow. Shara ki atma, and you, the individual, is the shara, the arrow. So this arrow, you are fixing on what? You are fixing on the Brahman. So your individual self, you must think of Brahman, the greater self, who resides in all of you. Like mirrors, individual ones, which reflect the same sun above. We have the reflection of that Atman, and we call it the Pratyagaatman. Well, these are wonderful theories. But the point is, how do I realize this? How can I control my mind? This is my immediate problem, isn't it? So Bhagavad Gita, see the prescription. Even the physical definitions, physical prescriptions are there in the book. You can chant these verses once again with me. Samam kaya shiro grivam, samam kaya shiro grivam, dharayan achalam sthira, dharayan achalam sthira, sampreksha nasikagram swam, sampreksha nasikagram swam, dishaschan avalokayan, dishaschan avalokayan. Can we practice it? Just see what it's doing. Samam kaya shirogrivam. Kaya is this part of the body. Shira, the head. Griva is the neck. All these three must be brought in the same line. You can practice this once. Samam. Chin up, spine erect. Okay. Samam kaya shirogrivam. Dharayan achalam sthira. It says you hold it achalam. It must not waver. It must not bend. Achalam sthira. Sampreksha nasikagram swan. Your eyes must be at the tip of your nose. Prescription for meditation, you see. Sampreksha. Putting it at the tip of your nose. Nasikagram swam. Swam your own. Not at the tip of the nose of other persons. Swam. Sampreksha nasikagram swam. Disha cha anavalokaya. Disha means directions. Don't look at the different directions. You sometimes, it so happens, I remember when younger brahmacharis, they start performing puja, they start looking in different directions. Okay? I remember a puja in Belur, when he used to do puja, he would go on his head rotating in all directions. Okay? He's watching who are the persons coming to the temple. This you should do. Dishacha anavalokaya. You must not go on rotating your head, your eyes. Anavalokaya. What do you do then? Prashantatma vigatabhi, prashantatma vigatabhi, brahmachari vrate sthita, brahmachari vrate sthita, manasayamya machitto, manasayamya machitto, yukta asita matpara, yukta asita matpara. Simple verse, you know. They say prashanta atma. Atma here means the mind. The mind should be shanta. Must be restless. Vigatabhi. It must be free of fear. If there is a haunting, fear lurking, then you can't concentrate your mind. Vigatabhi. Brahmachari vrate sthita. You must practice control over your senses. Brahmachari vrate sthita. Mana sanyamya mat chitto. Sanyamya, having control of the mind. Mat chitta. Mat chitta means, you see, at the beginning, you must take the help of an Ishta Devata, an idol, a person whom you revere. Say Krishna, say Rama, or Ramakrishna. With the help of this, gradually, you concentrate your mind. How do you concentrate? It says, you must also think about the qualities of that person. As you read more about Ramakrishna, then you know who that person is. Then it will be easier to concentrate on his photo, on his idol. Similarly with Krishna or Rama. So if you want to concentrate your mind on Rama or on Jesus or on Krishna, you must also know about his life or her life. Say you want to concentrate your mind on Ma Sarada's life. What in Vaishnava literature it says, as you do guna kirtana, guna is quality, kirtana is singing. As you do that, the wavering mind of yours that goes on straying everywhere, it comes back. And think about your ideal. It's easier to concentrate. Otherwise, suppose you have taken initiation, all of you have, many of you I believe have taken initiation, isn't it? So remember, when people take the initiation, in the forms that they fill up in India, they ask the question that you would be able to do twice japam, isn't it? Then boldly they say, yes, we can do that. Initiation is over. Then they come to us and say, Maharajji, dubari ki job dhan korte habe. What do you mean? That is what you have pledged there, that you will do twice in a day. So fine, it is gone. কতক্ষণ করে করতে হবে? How much time? Okay? খুব বেশিক্ষণ না, we are very busy. You see, busy bodies. We go to the office every day. Fine, but you have time to watch the TV. You have time to chit chat. You have time to look at your phones and scroll through the messages. Facebook, YouTube, WhatsApp. Give a little time for Japam. So your priorities, what you think about Ramakrishna or Ma Sarada or your ideal, what it does is, gradually your mind is tinged with that ideal. It is easier to meditate then. It is easier to concentrate then. I'll tell you a funny story. The story comes in a book by Rajshekhar Boshu. His pseudonym, his pen name is Parashuram. The name of the story is Siddheshwar Limited. He says there was a merchant. He was a busy person, okay? And his guru has told him that he ought to do 108 times, take the name of the Lord 8 times a day. So he was a busy person. So he prepares a stamp pad. Okay. And in the stamp pad, 12 times it is written Durga Inama, Durga Inama, 12 times. So now it's easy for him. He takes the stamp pad and 9 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 9. 108. So he has taken the name of the Lord 108 times. Okay. So this is how sometimes we want to play with our minds. That won't do. It's like a practice. Just as we do walking, just as we practice when we are ill. Suppose the doctor tells you that you have a diabetes, you must do walking every day. Out of desperation, we start walking, isn't it? Even in India nowadays, even in Kolkata, I remember, many people walk in the morning nowadays because health consciousness has definitely increased. People know that it's not enough to go up to the doctor and gulp medicines. You must take care of your own health. Similarly, meditation tells you, take care of your own mind. The more you do, the more amount of leash on your own life you would have. It sometimes so happens that we lament, that we have been pulled away by the circumstances. We do not know what has happened. It's not so. It is because we have allowed our mind to run away that we have frittered our energies. Undecided, we have followed others. We cannot form our own opinions, cannot have a proper logic for our own thoughts. Why? Because we do not cogitate, do not do pratyahara, do not do meditation. So, can we do a little bit of practice of meditation for this? There is what is known as pranayama. Pranayama, Swamiji says in his book Raja Yoga, he says, suppose the mind is very restless. You had a strong quarrel in your own house. Okay? Then a neighbor, he comes to the house. You do not want to show it to others that you had had a household quarrel. You pretend everything is fine. But you understand it yourself. How? Because you are gasping actually. Long breaths. So what happens is, when your mind is disturbed, then your breath is a longer one. Similarly, when the mind is tranquil and calm, the breath is even. You cannot even feel that you are breathing sometimes. So what pranayama does is, Swamiji says, it is like putting the cart before the horse. Normally the horse draws the cart. But now we can put the cart before the horse. How? Now, by controlling the breath, you are controlling the mind. You see, the breath you can feel, isn't it? Hawa. Amra boli na gacher pata nodche. You cannot see the hawa, the air. You can see its works. The mind is similar actually. You cannot get a hold over the mind directly, but you can see its works. If the body temperature rises when you are angry with someone, when you are very happy, then your body temperature settles. So pranayama is the process, the first physical part of it, because meditation practice has a small physical part as well. Asana, pranayama. When these steps are done properly, then controlling the mind becomes easier. Pranayama in fact has 3 sub-steps. Just to tell you the steps. The first is known as kumbhaka, taking in the breath. First one is puraka, taking in the breath. Then you retain the breath for some time. That is known as, anyone? Kumbhaka. And then you give out the breath, that is known as rechaka. So once again, you take in the breath, retain it for a time, then you give it out. When you do that rhythmically, then you have pranayama. All of us, we are taking in and giving out the breath. But when you have a leash over that, when you have a control over that, that becomes pranayama. Yam dhatu means to control. Pranayama is the control of the prana. Prana here means the breath. So we can just have a little bit of pranayama for a practice, for a small time. So I'll tell you the numbers. We'll count 4 in your own mind, of course, and put the air from the left nostril. Then close both the nostrils and count 16. Then from the right nostril, you will count 8 and give the air out. So first taking in to the left, then retaining it within 16, then giving out from the right 8. So I'll say Om, then you'll start, okay? And don't do a fast forward. Okay? Take a little time. Let's start. I'll say Omkara, then you start, and then I'll say Omkara again to end it. Om. Now taking from the right, the same process, 4, 16, 8. Start from the right. The last one, again from the left, 4, 16, 8. 4, 16, 8. Just to have a brief summary of what we discussed today, we can have 1 or 2 questions, Maharaj.
Please, if anyone has questions for Maharaj? You'll be happy to answer, but that will make our conversation lively. Why not come up and use the microphone?
Just to give a small summary before he puts the question, I've taken a few verses from the Bhagavad Gita that puts Arjuna's predicament before the war. Then seeing a ghastly battlefield, bloodied battlefield, Arjuna has time to listen to how to concentrate the mind. So when we say that we don't have time for meditation, then probably we are not busy or more busy than Arjuna is. Swamiji in fact puts this point in his Gita lectures. He says, are we more busy than Arjuna? Because he was in the middle of battlefield, and there he listens to how to control the mind. So we use the Bhagavad Gita, we put one or two definitions from the Swamiji's Patanjala Yoga Sutras, and then we also use some examples from the Upanishad as well, Indriyas and how they continuously are turned outwards. We want to restrict them inwards. So that's the summary. Then we had a bit of little practice. Yes, please.
Swamiji, my name is Raghavendra Rao. Being a regular here at Sri Ramakrishna Mission, and we have a good congregation here. Thanks for coming here. My question is, your presentation is very good, excellent, following the details on Sri Bhagavad Gita. My question is based on Sri Adi Shankaracharya. By following the Upadesha Sahasri by Sri Shankaracharya, he said, this is a long 1,000 slokas summary. He says, Jnanapath is the simplest way to control the mind. The Bhagavad Gita, the description he gave is very detailed. Physical needs, forcing the mind by itself. It is designed to oscillate. That's the nature of the mind.
Right.
If you look at the mind
So what's the question?
analysis, it always keeps on oscillating. My question is, instead of focusing physical needs to control the mind, like Sri Krishna suggested, go with abhyasa, Shankaracharya indicates, go with the jnana path, understand who you are. Okay? Once you have the basic understanding, you are the Atma, the soul. Atma is the God. God is the creator of everything. You are the God. So, the human body is designed such that
the jnana path would have been easier than the physical means. I think that's what you're saying.
And the question is, once you know, you believe the God, the concept that mind and breath, they are the creation of the God, then just ignore the mind, focus on what you want to do, and you keep on thinking it, then mind will come automatically under your control.
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
That's a good question. So let's have it one at a time. So his question was, just to summarize it for all of you, that whether the jnana path, the path of knowledge, is to be followed more than the physical means of holding the chin erect, the body, spine erect. I can give you an example, okay? If it's easier. Suppose I am due to appear for an exam tomorrow. The book is in front of me. I sit erect, concentrate my mind on the book. And as I go through the book, gradually I realize that these printed words actually are like keys which open up the doors of knowledge that is there lurking within. As you go through the book, you go back, as it were, to the author's mind who has written the book. He has given his thoughts by means of these printed words. So through the help of these printed words, you go back to the source of knowledge. Similarly, these external props holding the body erect, or an image, or a symbol, these are like props which take you to the core of knowledge. As I also quoted from the Upanishad, which says, Pranavo Dhanu Sharakti Atma. That is the final goal. You want your Jivatman to merge with the Paramatman. But the real point is why these have been prescribed. Krishna's teaching of Arjuna is so practical. In fact, in the 12th Adhyaya, he says, very celebrated Adhyaya, this is the Bhakti Yoga, it says, Kleshodikatara tesham avyakta sakta chetasam avyakto hi gatir dukkham dehavadbhir avapyate. It says, Kleshat adhikatara tesham. You see, a person with a body, dehavat, for him, it's still more difficult. Klesha adhikatar tesham avyakta asakta chetasam. If he wants to concentrate on the avyakta, on Brahman, which cannot be described in words fully, that's avyakta, it's still more difficult. Avyakto hi gatir dukkham deha vadbhi avapyate. Because I have a body, for me it's easier to follow another person who has set a good example before me. Okay? He shows the path to me, as it were, of knowledge, of religion. As you go ahead, then the Guru gradually moves away from the path. He allows you to discover more and more layers of knowledge. But Shankaracharya himself has composed wonderful Guru Ashtakam. Okay? Wonderful. There he says, you see, the Guru, he bows down again and again. He says the highest knowledge, oh Guru, it's only through you. You are the catalyst. You have opened up the doors of knowledge to me. So, of course, the highest is the Avyakta, the Brahman. But for the ordinary majority, it's exceedingly difficult. That is why you see intellectual religions which are stressed more on philosophy normally aren't popular. And it so happens that people who indulge too much on intellectual jugglery, in practical religion, the basic tenets of religion, such as truthfulness, liberal ideas, often aren't reflected. So that is why Swamiji has started this practical Vedanta. Someone requested me that I should say a little about this, just one word. You see, when you translate these ideas of religion into real world, when you have compassion towards others, then it is that the Brahman which is reflected in others, who I haven't perceived still. But since the Shastras tell me that the same Brahman resides in that poor person as in me, that is why I serve him. In course of time, this oneness would dawn on you through service. So Karma Yoga takes you to the highest jnana. Okay? I tried to reply. Yes, please.
I know some are born with very calm nature, some are born with very hyper or maybe chanchalata, or maybe I would say with restlessness. So when the pre-adult, a lot of maturity comes, automatically the person who is chanchalata already mature enough, and then he or she becomes calm. But for the kids, those who are restless, and how you wanted to do that, or even meditation is easy to say sometimes, but doing even for the adult is hard. So how do you do in that part?
Well, a good question. Okay. So you see, for a grown-up person, that most of you are, sometimes we cannot differentiate between the propensities of different kids. Okay? But philosophy says, especially the Hindu philosophy, which believes in rebirth, it believes that the propensities that you acquire in one life, it is carried over to the next. I think all of us have read about parallelogram of forces in physics, isn't it? There are 2 or 3 forces going in different directions, and the final outcome is through the diagonal, parallelogram of forces. Similarly, in this world, in this birth, we perform some good works and some bad works. Works are again of different kinds. Some are physical ones. You eat, it's a physical thing. But you think it's a mental one. Often we gloss over the mental ones. But Swamiji says, don't forget the mental ones. Because one day these mental thoughts of yours, they would gradually be concrete, get hard, and push you to the physical ones. Suppose you see an advertisement again and again and again. It's a mental act. You go to the store, you are first attracted towards that one. The advertisement that you have seen again and again. You probably haven't handled that item as yet. But even then, the mental waves that this advertisement had created has forced you to go for that physical act. So in this birth even, we go through different works and acquire different propensities known as samskara. So these samskaras are worked out in our next lives. So says the Hindu philosophy. In fact, Bhagavad Gita says it again and again. It says, you see, we are born according to our propensities. Krishna tells Arjuna, remember this wonderful verse is there. Bahunami vyatitani janmani tavacharjuna tanyaham veda sarvani natvam vedha parantapa. It says, you see, bahunami vyatitani. We have passed through many births. Bahuni me vyatitani. Janmani tavacha Arjuna. You also. Both of us. Tani aham veda sarvani. Fortunately, I remember them. Natvam vedha parantam. You do not remember them. I think many of you read the life of Bhagavan Buddha, isn't it? Buddha's photo is there here also. He speaks about his 500 births, Jataka stories. And many of them he was not a human being even. Sometimes he was an ox. Sometimes he was a dog. Sometimes he was a bull. So even Bhagavan Buddha could pass through so many lives. So what to speak about us? So when you see a young boy or a young kid, he or she also has her or his propensities. So you must also honor that somewhere. It's not that you must put a straight jacket and ask all of them to go through the same road. It's not that. But that requires patience on behalf of the teacher and the parents, It's easier for us to put them in the straight jacket and tell them, all of us must be an engineer or a doctor. It's not that. The more you recognize the diversity of beings, the more you have the ability to flourish, help flourish that child. You remember that Sri Ramakrishna's story? When his father had passed away, his elder brother wanted to teach him a bit of Sanskrit. His elder brother was running a Sanskrit toll as Pathshala, a school. His elder brother was sufficiently senior to him, was 30 years his senior, Ramkumar. Sri Ramakrishna was a loved kid. After his father passed away, his elder brother took him to Kolkata where he was running this store. He wanted to teach him Sanskrit. Why? Because an ulterior motive he had. He was a good Brahmin, but he thought that, well, if Gadadhar or Sri Ramakrishna also must become a priest, he must have the basics of Sanskrit proper, isn't it? If a priest chants a Sanskrit mantra wonderfully, you are impressed. Maharaj was chanting very well in the beginning. I was very impressed. Similar with all of us. If the priest can chant Sanskrit well, you're impressed with him, isn't it? So that is why his elder brother wanted to teach him Sanskrit. So Gadadhara, beyond the point, Sri Ramakrishna said, Amar chal kola madha vidde chaina. What does it mean? It says, in those days, instead of money, they would give in kind. Chal kola madha vidda. Chal is rice, kola is banana. A Brahmin or a priest is allowed to carry them. Chal kola madha vidde. The vidya, the knowledge, which is meant to give you a vocation, I do not want that. Okay. So see, looking beyond the vidya, looking at the ulterior self of why you are learning. So a kid merely 16 years of age tells his elder brother. It almost appears like an advice. His brother is upset. He thinks, you see, he doesn't know the rigors of the world. He doesn't understand how much of hardship I have to face to rear him up. He ignores. But you see, this is a child of another propensity, isn't it? How can we ignore him? Sri Ramakrishna, we thought, didn't know any writing at all. But that's not true. When I went to Shihor Gram near Jwarampati, we had seen writings of Sri Ramakrishna. He had copied the text. But Ma Sarada couldn't write. She could merely sign Sri Ma. But what a mine of knowledge, you see. Swami Vivekananda, such a paragon of Vedanta, was ever diffident to go to Ma Sarada. Okay? When he was going, sometimes he would again sprinkle Ganges water on him. We have such incidents. Swami Vivekananda, what charisma he has in today's world. Such knowledge, such a singer, such wonderful physique. People would mistake him for a king or a prince. Ma Sarada on the exterior, not impressive at all. But knowledge, simplicity, divinity, such wise counsel. In difficult positions, Ma Sarada was the anchor for the newly formed Ramakrishna mission. Even after passing away of Swami Vivekananda, the monks would go up to her and look for the last resolution to problems. So you see, people have different propensities, isn't it? So if you have a child with different propensity, the more you can nurture him, accordingly it's better. But at the same time, it's good to give them good thoughts. There's a story of Madalasa in the Upanishad. Swamiji would sometimes quote this. Madalasa, the mother, after giving birth to a child, she would rock that child in a cradle and say, Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi, Tattvamasi. The father, he would get upset. He would say, Ki kocho, in Sanskrit. What are you doing? Do you want this child to become a monk again? Madalasa said, yes. The highest knowledge must be conveyed again and again. Tattvamasi. Tat is that, Brahman. Tvam is you. Asi is are. You are that. That you are Brahman. From the very young age, if the highest knowledge can be given to a child, then naturally he grows up into that. But for that, we must equip ourselves also, you know. The more we are disciplined, that example counts on the child. Okay? You cannot advise the child merely and tell him or her to obey rules unless you obey it yourself. Okay? I try to give you answers well. One more question we can take, not more than. Please, time is running out. We have to do other thing. Right, we get question. Yes. I think people are too saturated with
You've said
thoughts.
all that. You've said all that.
Right.
One more.
My name is Ramakrishna. This is my first official visit here. I came once, I think it was a holiday, but I still found one or two gentlemen here. The point I want to make here, it's not really a question, it's just a comment. I think the topic has been extremely appropriate And he set the stage so wonderfully well. And the scope of today's discussion is about meditation, nothing beyond that. And the theory and the practice behind that. And he has covered so well and had chosen such a great scripture. Many people do not know that Bhagavad Gita mentions meditation. In fact, he didn't go beyond it because of the paucity of time, but he has given the essence of the meditation that is coming from Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita further says where to sit, how to sit, and what kind of place that you need to choose,
right.
what kind of asana you choose. Some of these basic things have already been laid down in Bhagavad Gita. And another important part that we have touched today is Ashtanga Yoga. Being a yoga teacher myself, I think that is the most important aspect. Anybody who wants to enter, the path of yoga or path of meditation. And as he rightly put it, the second sutra of Patanjali, Yoga Sutras, that is Yoga Chitta Bhakti Nirodha, and he has explained it so well, so meticulously. I think this is a great opportunity. The jnana doesn't come on its own, flying and sit on our heads, unless you are receptive. So I think we have to make ourselves eligible and be receptive in order to receive any kind of jnana. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Rightly made. That was a point that you made wonderfully. In fact, Bhagavad Gita also has actually prescriptions on how the asana should be. Okay, it says Saila Dina Kushottara. The three layers. One of the skin of a deer or a tiger. Then two more layers. One of cloth and another one of a softer material. Such details it has gone to. Why this is remarkable is, this is a scripture which is delivered in the midst of a battlefield. But just look at Shankara's Bhashya. Here, one gentleman had mentioned about Shankara. Shankara's Bhashya was the commentary which actually riveted the attention of people to Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita earlier was only a small part of the Mahabharata, with nearly 700 slokas. You can carry the Bhagavad Gita in your pocket, but you can't carry the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita in the pocket. It's a very liberal one. So the teaching was there embedded. Shankaracharya was so liberal that he said, you see, the very introduction to Bhagavad Gita, he says, you see, what Arjuna was taught by Krishna, that in later days was composed into verse form by Vyasa. Well, this has strong implications, you see. Often, sometimes we take it for granted that these verses of the Krishna were uttered by Krishna himself. But just theoretically, it's impossible, you see. If the fastest person to recite the Gita would take 1.5 hours. So both the Kauravas and Pandavas, they have to remain like statues on the battlefield with the arrows and the maces with them. So he gave the teachings that was probably spread throughout the entire war. Again and again Arjuna would be overcome by sorrow when his son was killed, Abhimanyu. So again and again Krishna would have to pump him up, encourage him. Get up. You cannot be downcast because all the warriors in the Pandava clan, they are looking up to you. If you leave the battlefield, others would act similarly. It would be setting a wrong example to others. This is important, you see. We who are grown up, we should set the right example before our junior kids. The more we do that, you need not be a teacher at all. By your mere life, you can set good examples. So Bhagavad Gita has the different layers, you see. Even Advaita Darshana is laid out there. Karma Yoga, of course, has been laid out to the fullest in practice also. And even meditation, so relevant verses are there. So I'm exceedingly thankful for your comments, and I thank the organizers, and Maharaj was kind enough to give us a short introduction as well. Namaskar.
Tyagarupananda Maharaj, for your beautiful, practical, and inspiring talk on meditation principles and practice. And we got a little taste of practice, and we also got glimpses of how you have been in education all along, because you referred to sitting for examinations and all those things. But very practical. We've all gone through those things, so it's very practical. Thank you very much. Now Maharaj will perform the Arati, and we'll sing together the Arati hymns. There should be in the back of the chair, for those of you who don't know. Page 7. And I get the chance to read the Arati for us.
Well, they just perform the singing. All these are done.